Niklsun here, and welcome to Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. I'm your host, and on this show, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we'll be going over all of the day's movie news, as well as going over what it means for the production in general, such as casting decisions, trailer announcements, director announcements, things like that. So, without any further ado, let's get started with today's Hot Topics. This first story is just an update about what I talked about on Wednesday's episode in regards to the new Batmobile. So, but shortly after the episode uploaded, and after I talked about everything, Zack Snyder surprised everybody with tweeting out a photo stating, here is a real picture of the Batmobile. And he gave us this unbelievable photo of this menacing vehicle. I don't even want to call it a vehicle. This thing looks like a beast. This looks like if they combined the original Batmobile from Tim Burton's Batman with the Tumbler from The Dark Knight Rises, and then basically turned it into a feral animal. Like, this thing looks angry. I mean, just everything about it. The gun on the front, you can tell with the gun. I know I'm geeking out a little bit here. You can tell with the gun that it actually is able to rotate and move back and forth, and it's mechanical. It's not just something that's going to go and then make its turns and all that stuff. I'm glad that they're not doing that. This looks like it's a real world application, which that's what I felt worked the best in the Nolan Batman movies. It didn't necessarily have anything to do with his take on Batman or anything like that. It was the real world sensibilities that he brought into that universe. And while I'm fairly confident, I think a lot of you out there are fairly confident as well, that this is going to be a little bit more of a fantastical version of Batman, more akin to the previous Batman movies that we've seen, although not going campy, especially with Superman and introducing Wonder Woman and Cyborg and Aquaman in this type of world. They are going to have to go a little bit more fantastical. But in that sense, they are still keeping what they can reality-based, in a sense, like very grounded. This obviously is a little extreme for someone to make, but still, it's just badass. Like, this just looks, like I said in my tweet, I said, badass. This is incredible. But also, right after Zack Snyder tweeted that out, the cinematographer of the film actually tweeted out another photo talking about what actual camera and lenses and lighting techniques that he used to make the photo, and they were really trying to make a point, and I'm really glad that they tried to make this, because the point they were trying to make was you can never get the right image or the right feel or the right mood from something taken from an iPhone camera or just a cell phone camera, like a Samsung phone or anything like that. This was taken from, I believe it was a Nikon D800, I think it was 24 millimeter lens. Like, he listed all the specs and the lighting conditions and the aperture, and it just goes to show what actually goes into making things look the way they do in a film. And I think a lot of people do forget that sometimes, especially when seeing, like, and I'm not one to shy away from this. I've made the mistakes myself, and even recently talking about Fantastic Four, I have stated that these pictures are out of context. We don't know what is surrounding them, what the reasons are for these images. But taking just an image based on a cell phone photo, not in context, not with CG or not with the final product, with the filters and everything like that, you can never really get a full sense of what they're trying to go for. Unless we start getting production stills and then we see, okay, now I'm getting a little worried. This is not the case with Batman v Superman. Looking at this photo, and especially seeing Zack Snyder actually tweet this out, it just shows signs that, again, like I talked about on Wednesday's episode, and I almost wish we had this episode had this picture, because what I said was Warner Brothers is doing the exact thing, the right thing, where they're dropping little things every few months, little bits of information. We're still getting the crowd shots, but Warner Brothers is still teasing us. They're still giving us little bits here and there. The movie is so far out that I am so happy they're doing it this way, because they're not allowing speculation to run rampant. If something comes out that really starts to disagree with the overall tone or the overall feel that they're going for the film, they speak out about it. And this is rare. Generally, whenever studios do that, it's because they're trying to cover their own tracks. But it's just very interesting to see Warner Brothers actually come out and be very forthcoming with all this information. I'm really happy, and more so to that, I mean, it really just brings back a little bit more faith in Warner Brothers. A lot of, like, I myself have been talking about this, but a lot of other people have also been talking about how their faith in Warner Brothers has been shaken because of all the changes with this movie. Originally, it was supposed to come out in July 2015. And then 7 months after they announced that, they said, okay, we're actually bumping it almost a year. We're bumping it 10 months to May of 2016. Then they moved it back. I mean, that was a good move on their part, but still very pleased with this picture. I cannot wait to see this thing in motion, although a little video came out with it in motion. But again, it was taken from a cell phone. It was taken at night. It was taken from across a river, it actually looked like, with zoom. So, I mean, it was very grainy. You really can't get a sense of what it's going to be in motion other than, hey, look, it's a moving vehicle. That's why I didn't even choose to put a link up for that video. You can go and find it on the various movie news sites. But you can't even really make it out all that much outside of somebody saying, hey, that's the new Batmobile. Otherwise, you wouldn't really be able to tell what kind of vehicle it is. But alas, if we do get any more information about this, whether or not it's another tweet from Zack Snyder or just more information about Batman v Superman in general, I will definitely update you guys on here. With this next story here, we're going to be talking about the great Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman just recently signed on to 2 high-profile projects. The first one is the upcoming Ted 2. He will be playing a civil rights lawyer in this movie that's going to help Ted out with some legal issues. Outside of that, we really don't know anything else about the plot other than Amanda Seyfried has actually joined the cast as Mark Wahlberg's new girlfriend. Mila Kunis is said to have a small appearance. Now, whether or not that ends up being true is another matter. But outside of that, we don't know anything about the plot of the movie. It is going to be coming out on June 26th of next year, so June 26, 2015. But at first glance, absolutely. I mean, Morgan Freeman is a world-class actor. He is one of the absolute greats. And he's always usually really good in everything that he does. The exception, at least in my mind, being Transcendence, the one that just came out this year. Although, like, he was okay in it, everybody just felt bored. They just looked bored. They looked like they didn't want to be there, like they were doing a favor for the director of the movie, who was the cinematographer on all of Christopher Nolan films. And as you can see, a lot of the cast, with the exception of Johnny Depp, have worked with Christopher Nolan. So that almost seemed like it was a favor. But outside of that, like, even with Lucy, I really enjoyed Lucy because it was a different film than I thought I was going to get. I thought it was going to be more of a big sci-fi actioner when it was more heavy on the sci-fi than it was on the action. The action was still cool, but for the most part, the action was given away in the trailers because there's not all that much of it in there. But the science fiction of it, even if it was so outlandish and didn't really make a lot of sense, I just thought it was cool. And that's all it really needed to be. And that's why the movie became a financial success. Not only because of Scarlett Johansson, but I felt that movie was just really intriguing, really interesting. I think I gave it like a 7 out of 10 on my review. But I felt he was really good in that movie. He had a smaller role. They really played up in the trailers that he was going to be a co-lead when he had a smaller role in the movie. But he always brings his A game. And so with him signing on to Ted 2, you know, I'm pretty sure he's not gonna phone it in, but it's gonna be kind of a little throwaway role. There's not gonna be anything special from it, but it's gonna be really nice to see someone with Morgan Freeman's gravitas to be involved in a project like that. So I'm excited to see him. The other project that he's joining is a little bit of a surprising one. He's actually joining the upcoming remake of Ben-Hur. Ben-Hur is going to be directed by Timur Bekmambetov, who directed such movies as Night Watch. He directed Wanted, and he unfortunately directed Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. And the reason I say unfortunate about that is because even though I thought that concept was really interesting, that horse sequence was absolutely terrible and unnecessary. I usually never say the word unnecessary when it comes to a film because, I mean, the argument could be made that everything in a film is unnecessary. But that sequence, it was almost like they needed to showcase that they can do a lot of CG. And so they made this horse stampede. All the horses were CG. Most of the fighting was actually done with CG. It was just terrible. I just thought it was horrible. Outside of that, I thought the movie was okay. But he's now signed on to direct the upcoming remake of Ben-Hur. Morgan Freeman is now the first official cast member to the movie. Now, Tom Hiddleston has been rumored to be playing the title character of Ben-Hur for a while. As far as I know, there's no more movement on that, whether or not that is true or whether or not he's just in negotiations with them. It's still up in the air as it stands at this point. But Morgan Freeman will be playing a character named Ildarin. He is the man who teaches the slave Ben-Hur to become a champion chariot racer. So again, it's going to be the mentor role, the role that I think everybody knows Morgan Freeman from. He has that voice, he has that commanding presence to be the mentor. I do think this could almost be called typecasting, but again, it's Morgan Freeman. And Morgan Freeman always brings his A game to these movies. Everybody loves watching him because I think a lot of it has to do with his voice, but he has just a very natural appeal. And so with him being attached to this movie, it's going to be opening up on February 26th, 2016. I do think that in the next probably within the next 2 months, we're going to be hearing a lot more casting announcements because this movie's got to get into production soon. There's going to be a lot of special effects that are going to need to be done on this film. And for it coming out in just over, it's about a year and a half still. It's coming out about a month before Batman v Superman. So we've got just under a year and a half left. They're going to need to start production on it soon. So we're going to be getting some more casting announcements. But overall, I'm happy about Morgan Freeman. Although some people try to argue the fact that he is basically just doing a Steven Spielberg and attaching his name to anything that he can, because he's at that point in his career where he can do that. He can just pick and choose. He doesn't need to prove anything to anybody anymore. So he really can just go and have fun. And if he likes a project for what it looks like on paper or wants to work with specific people, then he'll go and do that. That's just the type of person that he is. So I'm really happy to see him join both these projects. I think a little bit more for Ted 2, because I really do like seeing Morgan Freeman be in a more comedic role. Ben-Hur, he may throw a joke here and there, but it's going to be a more serious affair. So I'm both looking forward to both of these films. So if you get more information on either Ted 2 or Ben-Hur, I will definitely update you guys on here. This next story here is about the debut trailer for Keanu Reeves' upcoming action film, John Wick. At first glance, like when I first heard about the film, pictures started coming out, to me it just seemed like another generic Keanu Reeves action film. Like 47 Ronin was a letdown, and that movie has a fun little bit of trivia because he was never even really the lead role in that movie. He was a very much supporting character. But I don't know if it was on request of him or his agents or what ended up happening, but it may have just been the studio not having enough confidence in the film. So they went and reshot a whole bunch of footage to make him the main star of the film. And he even doesn't really even appear as that in the final version. But you could definitely get that impression from the trailers. But with this movie, I wasn't really intrigued by it. Then I saw the trailer. And there's a link in the description below the video here for you guys to go and view the trailer. This is surprising. It almost comes across as a little bit more of a high octane Taken in terms of the feel and the what appears to be the pace of the film. It basically revolves around John Wick, the title character played by Keanu Reeves, who's a retired hitman, and he's pulled out of retirement to settle a personal score. Basically, these guys come and attack him, and they take away everything from him. Well, it turns out that these were like low-level gangsters who were working for one of the guy's fathers, who's this big crime boss. Is actually played by Michael Nyqvist, who most people should remember him from Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. He played the villain in that movie, but a lot of people would remember him who played the original. I can't remember the character name, but he was the original version of Daniel Craig's character in the Swedish version of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. So he's playing the big mob boss in this movie, and basically everybody starts realizing, what has this kid done? Who's he messed with? You don't understand who you've messed with. But then it gets into the action element in the trailer, and it looks cool. It actually, part of it reminded me of Equilibrium. Anybody who's seen that Christian Bale movie from, I think it was 2000 that came out. It was a complete ripoff visually of The Matrix in terms of what it tried to do. It's a phenomenal movie. I really enjoyed that film. But there's a couple of sequences in this trailer that really remind me of Gun Kata. For those of you who have seen Equilibrium, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I love in action films when you know that a director is competent with action, because you see action sequences take place with long takes. One of my favorites of all time is in a film that's not even an action film, and that's the movie Hannah, who's directed by Joe Wright. Now, Joe Wright is currently working on a new version of Peter Pan. But Joe Wright's the director of movies such as Anna Karenina. It's a Keira Knightley movie. He's done a lot of period films, and Hannah was kind of at a left field. The music was done by the Chemical Brothers, so it had a really interesting musical style to it. But there's one action sequence that takes place, I believe it's about halfway through the film, with Eric Bana, and it's in a parking structure, underground parking structure. The entire fight is done in one shot, and it's just circling these guys as he's walking through the parking structure. These guys start to surround him, and then he just goes on this huge fight and taking them out. Not necessarily, I think it is a little bit one by one, but they're all attacking him kind of at once. But the camera's just circling him the entire time, and it's all done in one wider take as the camera's spinning around him. And it really just goes to show you how competent these people are at directing action films. It is really frustrating to see in action movies, especially Michael Bay does it all the time, but that's because he shoots, 45 different cameras at a time. But when they do quick cuts, when you can't really make out what's going on. I just recently, if anybody who hasn't seen on YouTube, either CinemaSins or CinemaSins does Everything Wrong with videos, and Screen Junkies does the Honest Trailers. And they just did an Everything Wrong with the A-Team, the one from 2010. And it's so funny. Every time there's an action sequence going on, he's just like, how can anybody tell what's happening right now? Because it's very quick cut. And I always thought it was a great commentary because it perfectly explains a lot of films nowadays and how they are shot and how they are edited. And I think the movie-going audience, the standard movie-going audience, is becoming a little bit smarter in that regard because they are starting to take notice and they are starting to realize that not only are they just getting repetitive, but you can't make out what's going on, which means you don't know if anybody's in danger, so then you don't care about the characters. Therefore, if they die, it's just like, oh, well, it kind of feels like a horror film. You're just waiting for the next character to die. So with watching a trailer like this and seeing all the people trying to come after him and him going after everybody and just the really cool fight choreography that appears to be in this movie, I'm very excited for it. So again, check out the trailer in the description below this video. Just to check it out. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I do think this looks like a refreshing action film. I don't think we've seen an action film that's new, that's not based off of a brand, because those are becoming fewer and fewer as we go on every day, because the studios are just not willing to pour in a lot of money into these films. The amount of money that has to be put into marketing alone will justify whether or not a movie gets made. You can make a movie for, I think, what was it? Neighbors is a good example, and I think I talked about this on the show before. The movie cost $17 million or $20 million to make. They put $45 million into the marketing. They more than doubled the production, or almost doubled the production budget just in the marketing alone. So that movie became a $60 million movie, a $65 million movie, even though it was only made for about 20. So, I mean, studios really have to be careful about what types of projects they do choose, but sometimes they do have a lot of faith in it. And they will try to push forward as much as they can. And I really do hope that we get back to that point where they don't have to rely on brands, because eventually we're going to start running out and there's going to be a real repetitiveness. So I hope we're going to get over this funk pretty soon. But John Wick, if this movie is a surprise hit, which I'm hoping it will be, this and The Equalizer look like to be really good revenge R-rated action films. And I think both of these are going to really hit well with the audience, as long as they're as long as they don't take themselves overly serious. And I don't get that at all from the John Wick trailer. This movie, it looks like it knows exactly what type of film it is. Equalizer is the same. Equalizer, from what I've been hearing, especially out of TIFF, are saying that it's a phenomenal film. It's a return to form for both director Antoine Fuqua and for Denzel Washington. So I'm definitely excited about that. And seeing John Wick as well coming out only a few weeks after. It's only coming out maybe like 3 to 4 weeks after The Equalizer. It's going to be a nice 1-2 punch to see these two films come in. And maybe John Wick could even spawn a sequel or a franchise. And then that could become a trusted brand, because that's all they need to do. The studios just need to take a chance on one film. If it doesn't succeed, oh well, we're not going to do that again. If it does succeed, you've now given yourself a brand new franchise. So there's a lot of hope for that. But definitely check out the trailer in the description below. Let me know what you guys think. And if we get more information about John Wick or anything else about the film, I will definitely update you guys on here. This next topic here is an update on Now You See Me 2. So for those of you who are fans of the original, you're in luck because we are getting a sequel. They just announced the other day, well, I mean, the sequel was announced a while ago, but they just announced the other day that the sequel will be coming out on June 10th, 2016. And Mark Ruffalo was actually just doing an interview while he was up at TIFF, the Toronto International Film Festival. And he recently announced that, as far as he's aware, production is going to start on that film in November. Now, Louis Leterrier, the director of the original, is not going to be returning to direct the follow-up. It's actually going to be John M. Chu will be taking over the reins. John Chu is the director of G.I. Joe 2 Retaliation. So the guy knows a little bit about action. He made the better G.I. Joe film, even though I did enjoy the first G.I. Joe film. That was one of those really silly, campy kind of fun movies. That was where I started to take notice of Channing Tatum, about how he could potentially be a leading man, and now look at where he is in his career. But everything else we know about the film is just that the original cast is returning. So we are getting Woody Harrelson, Jesse Eisenberg, Isla Fisher, Dave Franco, Mark Ruffalo's returning, Michael Caine, and of course, Morgan Freeman. So Morgan Freeman is a part of 3 upcoming major films within the next 2 years. And those are just outside of the other ones that he's already got in the bag. So, I mean, yeah, he's popping up everywhere. Morgan Freeman's just having a blast doing what he does. But other than that, we have no plot details about the film. There's no other information. I assume that as the movie starts production, usually studios will pull out a press release, either giving a short synopsis or a detailed explanation as to what the movie is going to be about. But I mean, after watching the first one was a real surprise. I was excited about the film before it came out. I thought it was a really fresh and unique take. I love seeing movies about magicians and about magic. I mean, a couple of years back in 2006, we had the 1-2 punch of The Prestige and The Illusionist. And even though both of them were fantastic, I find myself rewatching The Illusionist more often. It's not as action-packed of a movie. It's not as flashy of a movie. I just find it's an overall better story. And I mean, Edward Norton gives a hell of a performance in that film. But seeing this movie here, when I first saw it, I was blown away by it. Not to say that I gave it like a 9 out of 10 or anything like that. It just really surprised me. I wasn't expecting it to be as cool as it was. I thought there was going to be 1 or 2 fun little sequences. Turns out there were a lot more. I really loved the character development. I really loved the kind of back and forth cat and mouse game. And then I won't spoil it for those of you who have not seen it. But the ending, the reveal at the end, I don't know. Maybe I was just so enthralled in the movie I didn't pick up on it. But I mean, that twist, that surprise at the end, I thought that was great. And you could tell with the, again, I'm really trying to walk around this because I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen it. The twist at the end really does set up what they're going to be doing with the sequel. At least if you can think about one option that they could do in terms of the sequel. I think they're going to go down that route, but expand on it. I think we're going to get more from it. With having somebody like John Chu, we're going to get a little less flash, I think, in the production, because Louis Leterrier, anybody who's seen his other films, like he did the first 2 Transporter films, he did Clash of the Titans, the remake with Sam Worthington, he did The Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton, and then he did the original Now You See Me. So he's got a certain flash and flair about his production style. John Chu doesn't necessarily have that, at least not from what I've seen, because really the only narrative film that I know of from his that I've watched has been G.I. Joe 2. Everything else he's done has been documentary, because he does those Justin Bieber concert video things. Oh, I hate the fact that kid gets so much publicity. Anyway, so I really do think we're going to get something different from this. I think it's going to be more about the storyline and the action, or at least the suspenseful pacing of the film, as opposed to just the flashiness of it. But yeah, I'm getting more and more excited about this. But again, we don't know anything about it, and I always hate that. I like to know a little bit about the film. I don't like to know everything, because that's one of the reasons why I think I didn't enjoy Spider-Man 2 or Amazing Spider-Man 2 as much. If they had hid a lot of the stuff they showed in the trailers from that movie before the film came out, I think a lot more people would have enjoyed it. But because we got so much of it up front, we just didn't. So with this film coming out, we don't know anything about it. It's going to be opening up June 10th, 2016. Hopefully we'll go into production in November. I don't see any other hiccups coming up about that, because, I mean, you know, Avengers 2 is already done shooting, or almost done shooting. I don't know if they've actually... No, they did wrap. Yeah, they did wrap. So none of the main cast, Batman v Superman will be done by then. None of the other cast really have any big projects coming up, so I don't see any of their hiccups coming out about this film. So if we get more information about Now You See Me 2, I will definitely update you guys on here. Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, news came out that they were going to be completely rebooting the Underworld series. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that I talked about it on the show. And about how it's stupid to be rebooting a franchise so early on, because it's not like it's a Spider-Man situation where you're going to lose the rights to the character if you don't have a movie in production every 5 years. So I didn't understand the reasoning behind updating or rebooting the franchise, just continue on from where they were and expand on the universe they already have. But it turns out that that was just a rumor, because they are in fact moving ahead with an Underworld 5. Now, Kate Beckinsale, as far as it's concerned right now, will not be returning. It's actually going to be focusing on the character David from Underworld Evolution, the character, or Underworld Awakening, sorry. The character played by Theo James, who's now become a bigger star because of Divergent. You can kind of see why they decided to go through this route, mainly due to the fact that he is now a little bit more bankable. But I mean, outside of that, I don't know. I've kind of lost interest in this franchise. It's a really cool concept, and I thought that if they were to reboot it, the only way that I would accept it is if they are having to go in a completely different tone and style, because you really cannot do an Underworld 5 and completely change the look, feel, and tone of the movie. If you wanted to do that, you have to reboot it. So this looks like it's going to be a spin-off of sorts. Celine's character will still exist in this world, unless they're going to say in the movie that she's dead. Although, at the end of the day, that doesn't really make any difference, because they did that in Triple X 2, and they said that Xander Cage was dead. Well, we're getting Triple X 3 with Vin Diesel returning. So, it doesn't necessarily matter what they say in a film, but they could come out and say that, Celine was in a battle with 400 Lycans, and they ripped her to shreds. But yeah, outside of that, there's 2 new female leads that are going to be joining him. Outside of that, we don't know anything else about the film. Filming is scheduled to start sometime in early spring, so probably sometime around March. Knowing the Underworld movies in the past, we will be seeing this most likely in January of 2016. I don't see them delaying it until 2017. Unless they just need a little bit more time on the special effects. If they don't have a high enough budget, they're going to need to spend more time on them, because they're not going to have the rendering capabilities of the higher end studios. So it's all going to depend on what new information we do get after this. But the one gleaming ray of hope I do see in this, outside of the fact I don't really care all that much about the Underworld franchise anymore, is the fact that they are not senselessly rebooting this franchise. They are continuing on and doing an Underworld 5. It probably won't be called Underworld 5. It'll be called Underworld something something. But we're getting a continuation. We're not getting a reboot, and we just have to thank whoever we can thank that they're not doing another senseless reboot. So, I mean, there's that. But again, yeah, the movie's probably going to be released January 2016. They are going into production in spring, as long as everything goes according to plan. So if we do get more information about this topic, though, I will definitely update you guys on here. This next topic here is a user submitted question. I didn't get a graphic for it because this is going to be a fairly quick answer. The question comes to us from Jason Mercier, and he asks about the new Leprechaun Origins being done by WWE Films. And he asks, basically, is this movie supposed to be a reboot of that franchise as a continuation? Or if it is a reboot, why did they not bring Warwick Davis back? Now, for those of you who don't know, Warwick Davis, who played Wicket in the original Star Wars Return of the Jedi, and he's played, he was in what's the Val Kilmer movie where he played Mad Mardigan? Oh, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on this. Please let me know in the comment section below exactly which movie I'm trying to think of. I'll remember it after I record this, I know for sure, but yeah, just put in the comment section if you know which movie I'm trying to talk. Oh, I can see the cover of it. Anyway, he was also in the Harry Potter franchise. First, I'll answer the why he didn't come back. He didn't come back because I don't think he wanted to. Warwick Davis is at a point right now where he's been involved in so many different franchises. He gets so much in royalties that he doesn't need to actually go out and work. So when he does go out and work, it's a project that he wants to work on. I don't think he wanted to return to the Leprechaun franchise. The last one he did was, I don't even know if it was actually him, but it might have been, was Leprechaun in the Hood. And I think after that, he was just like, no, I'm done with this. I don't want to be associated with this anymore. So, no, he didn't come back. That was a personal choice. He just didn't want to come back. But also, part of it was because the WWE were the company that financed the film. And they were making this movie as a way to have a starring vehicle for their wrestler Hornswoggle. So it was kind of a two-way street, but I don't even know if he was even in contention for it. But as far as I'm aware, I don't think he would have wanted to be a part of this film at all. But to answer your second question, yes, this is a reboot of the franchise. They are going in a different direction. They are going more of a straight-lined horror film as opposed to a horror comedy. But outside of that, I mean, the movie's on video on demand now. It's going to be having a small theatrical run, I believe, on the 22nd of... Actually, wait, no, sorry. It already had its small theatrical run. It's going to be out on DVD at the end of September. Either the what would that be? The 23rd or the 30th, I think. I think it's the 23rd that it comes out. But it's on video on demand right now if you guys want to check it out. It's called Leprechaun Origins. It's set in Ireland, naturally. And it is a more straight-line horror film. But, I mean, knowing the pedigree of WWE films, it's probably not going to be all that great. I don't know if I'll check it out. I'll wait to hear whether or not some people who I know who would want to watch it are going to watch it. I'll actually, Jason, let me know if you watch it, if you've seen it, if it's actually worth watching, if it's entertaining, if it's one of those so bad it's good movies. Like one of my favorites, I've mentioned this before, is Mongolian Deathworm. You can find that on Netflix. It's so bad, but it's one of those, I can sit there and watch it and I enjoy it. So yeah, hopefully that, Jason, that answers your question. It is a full-on reboot, and no, Warwick Davis, I don't believe even wanted to come back, but I do believe that it was just because WWE wanted a starring vehicle for Hornswoggle, because they are branching out a lot more into their films. Like I stated on a previous episode, they're doing an update of the Flintstones with John Cena Stone, what is it? It's not Vince McMahon, it's Vince Mc... Oh, what is his stupid name in the movie? They made all these rock pun names for the new Flintstones movie. I don't even know if it's still in the works yet. That project may have just been dead or may have been killed. But as it stands right now, yeah, Leprechaun Origins is a new reboot of the franchise. Again, let me know if you guys think about anything of the film, whether or not it's worth talking about or anything like that. But if you guys have a comment or a question or anything like that you want me to address on the show, I do it every Friday. Please put a comment in the comment section or email me at movienewswithnicholson@gmail.com, and it'll be answered on every Friday episode. Well, that'll do it for us here on Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have been a great audience. Go ahead and click the subscribe button there in the bottom corner. You can get updates whenever we post a new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at Niklsun, Niklsun, for all of your movie updates. And you can also find us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/movienewswithnicholson. Give us a like on there. And also, like I said earlier, if you guys have a comment or a question you'd like to have addressed on the show, you can go ahead and put a comment in the comment section, or you can email me at movienewswithnicholson@gmail.com, and I'll answer it on every Friday episode. And until next time, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.